Hi everyone, it's the Math Sorcerer here with Chegg. In this video, we're going to be discussing quadratic equations and applications. We're going to do an example of solving a quadratic equation by completing the square. The question says, solve 2x squared plus 7x plus 1 equals 0 by completing the square. Let's go ahead and carefully work through it. Solution. The first step in the process of completing the square is to isolate all of the terms that have x's. We have this 1 here, so let's go ahead and subtract it away. So we're left with 2x squared plus 7x, and that's equal to -1. The next step is to make sure that the coefficient of the x squared is a 1. So because we have a 2, let's go ahead and divide everything by 2. So you divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2. These cancel, so you get x squared plus this piece here, the 7x over 2. Let's write it like this, 7 over 2 times x. And this is equal to -1 over 2. Now we're ready to complete the square. This is the part where it gets a little bit tricky. So what you do is you take the number in front of the x. It's called the coefficient of x. In this case, it's 7/2, okay? And you divide it by 2. But because it's a fraction, it's easier to multiply by 1/2. So we're going to take the 1/2 and multiply that by the coefficient of x. And then we're going to square it. So you always do this. You always take whatever number's in front of the x and divide it by 2 and square it. But in this particular example, since it was a fraction, I wanted to use multiplication because otherwise it looks really messy. So this is equal to, well, 1 times 7 is 7, 2 times 2 is 4, and all of that is being squared. That's equal to 7 squared is 49, and 4 squared is 16. We're going to take this number and we're going to add it to both sides of this equation. We're going to add 49 over 16. And then we're going to add 49 over 16. So on the left-hand side, we get x squared plus 7/2 x plus 49 over 16. On the right-hand side, we have -1/2 plus 49 over 16. All right, good stuff. So now we actually have to, perform this addition. So maybe we should go to the side and do it so we don't clutter the problem. I'm going to do it up here in blue. If we have -1/2, is a lighter blue so you could see it. There we go. We have -1/2 plus 49 over 16, and we want to add these numbers. What you need to do is you need to find a common denominator, which in this case is 16. We can multiply the -1/2 by 8 over 8, because that'll make the bottom a 16. So we'll get -8 over 16 plus 49 over 16. That's equal to, well, -8 plus 49 is 41. So we get 41 over 16. Let's come back to our problem. I'm just going to rewrite it again, our equation. So we have x squared plus 7/2 x plus 49 over 16 equals 41 over 16. All right, the next step is something that you memorize, okay? So because we added this number to both sides of our equation, this equation right here will magically factor, okay? It will look like this, parentheses x, parentheses and a 2. And this is going to be 41 over 16. This is just from memory. So I know there's going to be a parentheses. I know there's going to be an x. I know there's going to be a 2. And then what you do is you keep the sign. See how there's a plus here in front of the 7/2? So you keep the sign. Keep the sign. Always keep the sign. And then you take the coefficient of x and you divide it by 2. But since it's a fraction, it's easier to multiply by 1/2. So if you multiply it by 1/2, you get 7 over 4. So this is 7 over 4. really hard problem. This is one of the harder problems. I picked a tough one on purpose because a lot of times you see easy examples. I wanted to do a harder problem. So again, you just always keep the sign and you always divide this number by 2, but instead of dividing, we multiplied. If you're wondering why this is true, you could check. Like if you tried to factor this, this is what you would get. It always works. The whole point of completing the square is that when you add this number to both sides, you don't have to think about factoring, you memorize it. So now we got to get rid of this 2, right? So what we'll do now is we'll take the square root of both sides. When you do that, you do get a plus or minus because you have a variable and it's being squared. It's going to lead to a plus or minus. So you get x plus 7 over 4 equals plus or minus. The square root of 41 is the square root of 41. And then the square root of 16 is 4. We're almost done. Now we just have to subtract 7/4 from both sides. So minus 7/4, minus 7/4. Boom. Finally, we end up with the final answer of, I'm going to write it big because this was a lot of work. This is negative 7 over 4 plus or minus the square root of 41 over 4. Yeah, pretty tough. So completing the square takes a lot of practice, and this is probably one of the harder examples out there. And just the steps, right? It's all about the steps. So you basically start by getting rid of the number, so you have only x's, and then you divide by 2, so there's a 1 in front of the x squared. You take the coefficient of x, use a different color, which is 7/2, and divide it by 2. But since it's a fraction, we multiplied by 1/2, and then you square it. Add it to both sides. We did some adding over here on the right. And then once you get here, you can automatically factor. It's always going to be x. You keep the sign, and then you just divide the coefficient of x by 2. But again, it was a fraction, so we multiplied by 1/2. And then from there, it's easy. You take the square root, you put a plus or minus, and you finish. Hopefully you've learned some mathematics in this video. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out more videos on Chegg. Until next time, good luck.